Alrighty then, welcome to this video. Now in this video I'm gonna go a little bit deeper because on a lot of comments on the video that started out as a joke video kind of turned in a tech support video. Uh, there's like a lot of comments like, hey, I got this error, please help me, and so on and so on and so on. And I think I already made a video about it, but I'll make another one just in case. So the error that I'm talking about is Windows error code 43, so 43 GPU error. Now there are a couple of things that this can happen. First, it might be that Windows had an update and it broke your card or the driver of your card. There are a couple of things to solve this. I'll start with the easy way and then go dive deeper into it, and hopefully this will fix it for you. If not, well, we tried. And I'll also go a little bit later in the video. I will go over like tips and tricks what you can do to preserve your hardware or make it last longer. So let's get right into it. So when you first get this error, it's usually that there is a problem with the driver with the card, or the card is broken, or something else is going on. It can have multiple factors or multiple reasons. Now the first reason is that if it worked before and now it didn't, driver issue can happen. Simply uninstall the driver, like completely remove it, and then this is the important part, restart your computer. Do not shut it down, restart. Specifically restart, because when you shut down, it does not redo the kernel of Windows. And the kernel is basically the engine list on what to boot. Like, oh, I have a grocery list and I go to the store. And you buy your groceries and you dump it in there. And then a friend comes over and dumps something in your fridge, or you want something else or whatever. But you still have the old list, so you're not going to buy that new part, the new stuff that you want, because you still have that old list. And that's basically the same with Windows. So when you restart, it actually goes and look, what drivers do I have, what hardware do I have. It takes a little bit longer to start, but it literally goes and makes a new list. The same with you walking to the fridge, check your fridge and write down what you need. And that's basically the same with Windows. So that's why I insist that you restart before you reinstall the driver. So after you uninstall it, you reboot, Windows is booted, now you can install the driver. After the driver is installed, it should have fixed the issue. You may need to restart again to make sure, but usually it fixes the problem. If not, there are some other things you can try out. So if it's still broken, you can do the following. Uninstall the driver again, and then reboot. Do not install the driver at this point. Shut it down after the reboot. Take out the physical card and put it one slot lower. So it basically gets a different port, so to say. Like every slot has their own port, and the driver is routed to that port. So if the card has been taken out of that slot, then that driver path is no longer valid, which will be removed. Because the hardware has been taken out, that driver is no longer active. Well, at least the registries. Let's say like Windows needs at least a registry to like, hey, there is a card in this slot, but since you took it out and replaced it, that card is now empty. There's all the old stuff that was registered to that slot has been deleted. Like even if the driver is uninstalled, there is still a registry. There is a card in that slot in Windows. So when you take out the card and put it a slot lower, that card no longer exists. So that information will be wiped as well. So when it's in the second slot, or the lower slot, so to say, then you can try. Hold on one second. I need to sneeze and it's stuck. Anyway, when you put it in a lower slot, it will create a new path. So it will consider, hey, I have a new hardware component. Then when you boot it up, when it's in that second slot, install the drivers and see if it's fixed. If it's not fixed at this point, you may have a different issue. So at this point, you can either put it back or take it out entirely. But usually, it should be fixed at this stage. If it's not the case, then we need to proceed and troubleshoot some more stuff. Because usually this fixes the issue. Now, you can either leave it in that slot or you can shut it down and put it back in the first slot, but you may need to reinstall the driver. So, but in any case, it should have fixed. If that's not the case, you need to make sure that your power supply is still working properly. Like try swapping the cable, see if that fixes it. Maybe the card is not getting enough power. That's also a possibility. And if the slot was broken, then you would have noticed that at that second slot. If you still have the same issue with the second slot, then it's not the motherboard at this stage. So we already ruled that out, that maybe a pin burned out or something. So it's not the slot at this point. So that's also the second reason why I'm telling you to try to put it in a different slot. So if it is fixed, good for you. If it's not fixed, check if the cables are working properly, like if it's properly plugged in. Make sure your computer is not overheating, and especially if you're an overclocker, you're on your own. Because overclocking is usually bring instability. Maybe the voltage isn't high enough. Maybe your software update need more voltages because it wants more performance and it doesn't have enough power to do that. Or maybe it has too much power and it overheats. All things that can happen that can generate this error, but the majority is related to driver. Another thing you can try is unplugging. I know this sounds stupid and crazy, but try unplugging every single USB device on your computer. You may need to replug in your keyboard, but take out the majority and boot it up and see if that fixes the issue. Sometimes, in rare cases, okay, it doesn't happen always, but in rare cases it does happen, that in this case the webcam can interfere with your graphics card driver. It's rare, but it does happen. Simply by unplugging it can solve a lot of issues, especially when you're trying to install a driver. I guess it's hot, so I need to drink. So another thing that can happen is when you install the driver that you're stuck on the Windows boot logo. This can also relate to that USB problem that I talked about earlier. As I mentioned before, try unplugging it and reboot it, see if it boots. After it's successfully booted, you can plug everything back in again. Like I said, it's a rare case, but it does happen. There's also a case known that a mouse, a actual USB mouse, was the issue. Like I said, try to unplug everything, try to boot it up. If it doesn't boot because you're missing a keyboard, plug in your keyboard again, try to reboot, see if it works. If you boot it up successfully, hooray, you can plug everything back in. If you restart and the problem is back, then go one by one and see which device is causing the issue. So that's another tip that you can try out. Another thing you can try is to take out the graphics card and put in a different card to see if that one does work. This will also reset the whole hardware list. You can try to take that card, plug it into a different computer, and install the driver, see if that one does work. If it's fixed there and there's no issue, you may have a Windows problem. Now this can be solved in a couple of ways, but we do that as a last resort. So the majority, it should be fixed now. So now we're getting into the rarer cases that either the card is broken, but if we already confirmed that the card is not broken and it does have power, like the power supply is not broken or anything, there's another issue that you need to consider. Make sure, and this is very important, that your computer is grounded. If your computer is not grounded, as in like a physical wire that goes into the ground, like, yeah, standing on the ground is grounded. No, that's not what I meant. I meant with a power plug that you have three wires, plus, minus, and ground. That's the ground that I'm talking about. Make sure it's grounded. If you do not have a ground wire, you could make a wire and hook it up to your radiator because your radiators are grounded. So you can actually put a wire. I think I actually done it here. I'm not sure if I'm able to show you this, but I do have a separate wire there that is grounded. But for those that are not grounded, you can do it like I've done there. That's a little hard to see from here. Yep. Here. You see the wire over there? That's a ground wire surrounding the. Maybe if I make a light, give me a moment. So you see the yellow green wire that is wrapped. Yeah, it's a little hard to see. That is wrapped around. You see the copper wire over there? It's wrapped around the metal pipes of the uh, radiator or the heater, so to say. So that you can also ground it that way because these things supposed to be grounded. Like you can check it. Usually, this is grounded at the on two places. The first place is usually the bathroom, okay, where your shower or your tub is. It's usually grounded there. You can see it with a little metal wire that is attached to the pipe. If this is not the case, the second place that it is grounded at is at your boiler room. Because when something heats up and cools down, it can generate static electricity. So that's why it has to be grounded, or you're constantly getting shocked when you're touching your radiator. If you're getting shocked when touching the radiator, it means it's not grounded, or you are grounded and you're sparking it to get grounded. But usually, touching this will ground yourself. So the reason for this is that when a computer is not grounded, the following things can happen. Now, the first thing, if you have SSDs, your SSDs may break faster or short circuit, data corruption, and etc. So at this point, you need to make sure your computer is grounded so that stuff doesn't break. Because computers in general are very, very sensitive to electricity, especially static electricity. So you can actually damage and break your components. This can also affect performance, and it can also hinder or generate errors like the code for free GPU error code in Windows. Now, this is not always the case, but it can happen. And the majority, it's way better to have your hardware grounded than not grounded because, like I said, build up static electricity, it has nowhere to go, and eventually it will jump. Like if it builds up enough, it will start jumping from one component to the other, which means it's going to short circuit, overvolt, and it can literally blow up your hardware eventually. Another reason is where you can get these errors is that when your computer overheats. And I'm getting a phone call. Hold on. Okay, my apologies for the interruption. Got a phone call. So, So yeah, make sure your components are grounded because, like I said, you can literally have issues. As far as overheating, depending on how old your computer is, you may have a very thick dust layer in your system, which can generate to a lot of heat. And if the heat has nowhere to go because it's being covered by dust, it may also cause issues with data corruption because it's overheating. And when stuff overheats, it doesn't function as intended. So you get way more errors, and maybe this is one of those errors that causes the registry to give you the error that you're experiencing now. So make sure you clean your computer. Do it carefully though, because you don't want to accidentally knock off some of the little chips on the board. There are little canisters for it with air that you can use to clean it out a bit, or bring it to a computer technician that will do it for you. So either way is fine. Um, So yeah, make sure it doesn't overheat. If you're overclocking, you're on your own, because overclocking in general makes computers usually very unstable, uh, in a certain degree, because it was not meant to build for that speed. Because if it was, they would probably make it that speed and sell it for a higher price. Anyway, that's a different story. We're here to try to solve or get tips for the error code 43 code. So after all, we've gone over all of that. Well, at this point, there's not much I can do for you. I mean, yeah, at this point, we only come to a last resort, which is a factory reset. Now, factory reset is kind of an iffy story because there are two routes, well, actually, three routes you can go. Well, I'm only going to talk about two routes. First route is to, if you're able to make backups, roll back your computer to when the backup was made, when the card still worked. That's one option. Second option is like I said, resetting to factory default settings in Windows. Now, there are two options in this second option. The first option is wipe everything, there's wipe data and that's it. Or reset to factory default but keep files and apps. I recommend going for the keep files and ads. You may need to register or reactivate some programs, but the majority should be there, and this can also fix the issue without losing data, or the majority of your data, so to say, because some programs may not uh, stay there, but the majority, when you're resetting it to factory default with keeping apps and programs or files, so to say, it should fix it, but only as a last resort. Because if something goes wrong, you may lose your data. So make sure you back up your important data before you do this. So preferably keep files and apps, but it may uninstall some programs, so keep that in mind. And that's a last resort. Now, the third option is a little bit more drastic, but technically it is better. Is to completely wipe the drive, completely erase it, complete reinstall from scratch. And if it's still broken, well, it sucks to be you at that point. But yeah, at that point, if it's a fresh reinstall or a fresh reset and it still is broken, well, then I'm sorry for you, but I think your card might be broken at this point, or it may be too old. Like, in all honesty, these errors usually pop up with older cards, but anything above 1080, for an example, should still be supported. So anything below that may have some issues. Okay, so now we considered all of those steps. From this point, there's nothing else I can tell you what to do because I honestly wouldn't know where to begin. So from this point, I'm going to talk about some other stuff, such as what cards to buy and whatnot. It heavily depends on your usage. Like if you're only gonna watch some YouTube videos and mostly do writing books, for example, in WordPress or Excel or something like that, you don't need a heavy duty graphics card. You can basically do that with an onboard graphics. Okay. Now, as soon as you start gaming, just in general gaming, the best value for price and performance, I would say the lowest is a 60 version. So it's a XX60 or an XX70 or an XX80 or an XX90. So the XX stands basically for uh, 1080 or uh, 2080 or a 3080 or a 4080 or the 5080. So that's why the X is standing for. So anything below the 60 version, regardless if it's a TI or not, is, in my opinion, this is purely my opinion, is a waste of money and performance. It's just e-waste in my eyes for a couple of reasons. The first one is bandwidth and the performance. So, granted, these lower end cards are perfectly fine if you're playing Minecraft or something simple, okay? That doesn't need that much power. And I'm not talking about adding high texture packs to Minecraft. No, I'm talking about default Minecraft, okay? It should be okay to run a lower end card, but it's not going to be pretty. Like, price and performance is just not worth it in the long run. The 60 variant has more bandwidth than a 50 version. Now, what is bandwidth? That bandwidth is basically the wideness of the data track, like kind of like a road. Like you have a single lane or you have 8 lanes. So single lane, 8 lane, which lane can have the most cars? So, and it's the same with data. So the smaller the bandwidth, the less data can travel. Now there's also the memory speed, as like is it DDR5 or 4 or lower, like DDR3 for example. There are many types. I'm not going into details because then this video will not be finished anytime soon. So the majority that you need to look out for is that anything, in my opinion, anything below a 60 version is not worth the cash. Simple as that. As a gamer, don't do it. You're gonna regret it. The second thing you need to look at is the how much memory does it have, and this is indicated by VRAM for video memory. These days, I would recommend 8 gig or more if you want to play the higher end games, especially in this future. Like I said, if you're playing Counter Strike or Minecraft or simple games, okay, it's fine. You don't have to worry about it too much. But when you start playing Cyberpunk or something in that range, yeah, you kind of need a little bit more than that. So, in general, the 50 and lower are just not worth it. Like the bandwidth is low, the memory bandwidth is absolute garbage, the memory speed is even worse, and the CUDA cores, as in like the processing nodes on the graphics card itself, is way less than a 60 version. Now, it also varies in size, how big the cards are, but the majority, everything below the 60 for gaming is not recommended. Now, granted, like I said, if you play Minecraft, it's fine, but don't complain if it starts lagging. And I haven't even started to talk about live streaming. If you want to go live streaming and play games, anything below 60 and it's not going to happen. You're not going to have a good time. Like, it's either going to lag or it's going to have issues in general. Now, the higher end, like the 3050, for example, may have less issues with it, but still, wouldn't recommend it. Like, save up a little bit longer to get a 60 or better, because it will last longer for you as well. With if future game come out and you really want to play it, your card should be able to handle that at lower graphics. But a 50 or a 60, 60 is fine, but anything lower than a 60, like a 50 or a 40 or 30 or something, you're gonna throw that shit away after a year or so, because it will not be able to keep up with the games that demand more and more and more. So, and price and performance, it's just not worth it. Like, onboard graphics are similar to that, okay? Like, a 60 version is a little bit better than onboard graphics these days. But a 50 or lower, I think onboard might be better at some point. But that's my opinion. Like, if you really want to dive into this, go look up reviews. See which card is better for you. See how many frames you have in the game with that specific card. There are plenty of videos out there that will go into detail, show you exactly what it does and how it performs with the graphic settings for that specific game or something similar. Like, for example, uh, a GTX 1050 versus a GTX 1060. They have a nice little graph with how many frames, how fast it performs, and yada 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 yada. Go look up reviews and benchmarks, and you will know exactly what you're getting into. So, like I said, yes, they're a little bit more expensive, but it is gonna be better in the long run. And as far as AMD goes, I am not knowledge about that, so you're on your own department. But just in general, if you want to play video games, get a 60 or higher, because anything lower than that is just a waste of money, unless you literally have no other choice. Another thing is secondhand. Personally, I would never ever buy a secondhand unless I have no other choice. For three reasons. First reason is you have no idea what that card has been through. Like, has it been overclocked? Has it been mining Bitcoin? Has it been wet? Has it been dropped? You know, has it been overvolted? Has it been? Does the software on it been altered? You know that it says. Oh, it says here I have a GTX 1060 Ti in when in actuality is a 1030. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I never ever buy a second hand. The second reason is the fact that shipping. It may get damaged during shipping, which is also an issue because usually when it's secondhand, it's no longer complete, so to say. And also, from the first reason, you have no idea what it's been through. So, has it been used for mining or whatnot? The third reason is there is no warranty on it. So, maybe it's a dead card, you know? Maybe it's broken. You never know. Like, they're trying to sell it as, yeah, it works fine, and then you plug it in and it blows up your system. Those are the three reasons why I would never ever buy a second hand unless I know exactly the history of the card and is able to prove that history of the card. So, for an example, this card has been laying on the shelf, for an example, and it's still sealed, perfectly fine. But if it's been used, it's like how it's been used for a benchmark and that's it, and the card looks relatively clean, perfectly fine. But at least have them let it run to see if it actually works. Okay? That's the only reason why I would do that. So now I'm gonna go into another section on tips. What you can do is usually when you buy hardware, it has, at least in this country, it has a 2-year warranty from the factory by default. Okay? What I personally do is like, yes, I have a very high end components, but usually it either breaks 2 weeks after or just after the warranty expires or slightly before it. And of course, you're going to hope it breaks sooner because then you get a replacement. But if the replacement is no longer able to be obtained, you get something that is similar to that. You may need to buy a little bit extra, or you need to may add a little bit of cash, but that's fine because it's a new product, which means you get 2-year warranty on that product. So you extend your warranty because it's a new component. And at this point, you can constantly keep upgrading your computer. And that's the way that I did. So you buy something new, very expensive, but in the long run, when you're using it and it's still within warranty, you get more money back and you don't have to pay as much. Like, for example, I have a GTX 3080 water blocked special edition. That card was not cheap, and especially in those days. I paid about 2,500 euros for it back then. But because I still had a graphics card, I got a 280 Ti special edition, and they can no longer obtain that specific card. But there was still warranty on it. So what happened was I got like €1,000 back from that card because I paid it. I paid 1,500 for it back then, and I got like €1,000 back. So I only had to pay 1,500 in order to get a brand spanking new card. Now, granted, the reason why it's this much is because of the Bitcoin crisis that people were literally scalping cards. So that's the reason why those cards are that expensive back then. But normally it would have been 1,500 normal price. Okay, if the Bitcoin crisis and the scalpers didn't happen, that card would have been €1,500. So that means I only have to pay €500 to get a brand spanking new card that is top of the line, or at least up there, like a 3080. Okay, that only cost me €500 to get a 3080 in that matter. So because I got €1,000 back, because I paid the car for 1,500, this car would have also been 1,500 because there was still warranty. I get like 1,000 back, so only have to pay 500. So I get a complete new graphics card with 2-year warranty, and it's an 80 card. So it only cost me 500 instead of 1,500. So in that case, you can continuously upgrade your computer without spending too much cash because you're constantly renewing it. And that's how I managed to get the computer that I have today, is by constantly upgrading by spending very little money. So yes, this entire build is over 20,000 euros, but that's been built up. Okay, so and in case you were wondering, this entire desk is my computer. So I got my control panel there, I got the UPS under there, so if the power goes out, the computer continues to go. And yes, I know my desk is a mess. I got my hard drives and my shovel panel here, so these are my hard drives. These are my DVD players. And back here, yes, this is a custom built thing. We got my graphics card, SSD, capture card, um, some other cards in there. I kind of slipped my mind. Like I think I got like 3 SSD cards and a sound card. And as I mentioned before, this is a special edition. But yeah, there you go. That's literally what I have in this entire table. So I don't know if I can lift this pick up. So if you peek under here, we have all of the wires. We got 2 power supplies. It's a little hard to see, but that's the first one. Second one is back there. And then there we have some more stuff in there, as you can see. So this entire desk is my computer. So, and it's water cooled as well. So yeah, it was very expensive, but because I built it up, like I started like, I think I paid €2,000 for my first computer. And then over the years, I expanded it now. At some point, I had to change. So when I built this particular system, it cost me like €6,000. So how do you rank up to the 20? Well, simple. Hard drives are not cheap. I have like a lot of storage space. This desk wasn't cheap either because I made it myself, and the materials. Well, the materials itself weren't that too expensive, but I got a UPS for backup power. The fans, the fan controller, the wires, specifically the wires, are very, very, very expensive. I got a custom motherboard tray where I can put my my motherboard on, and then I got my water cooling loop, and that wasn't cheap either. So then I got the monitors, keyboard, mouse, camera, additional stuff. All of that together cost me about 20K, which is pretty significant for this entire set. I don't have to worry about this is getting stolen because this thing is so heavy. It takes me 3 days to take this thing apart. So yeah, unless you want to steal this, it's going to take you 3 days to take this apart. So yeah, I'm not too worried, and it's heavy as well. So yeah, then you got a custom build, and I know it's a mess, and I've been busy. Anyway, that's it for this video. This video is already pretty long, so thank you for watching. I hope this information was useful to you. If you still have issues, I will try to help you out, but I'm just a normal, regular guy. I'm not getting paid to do this. So, yeah, I have a life too, and I cannot be tech support 24/7. So I appreciate that you're asking my help, but like I said, don't be discouraged or like angry with me. Like I have a normal life as well, and I'm not tech support. Okay, and I'm not getting paid for this either. So please be patient with me. I'll try to do my best, but yeah, I can't guarantee that I'm able to help everyone. So again, thanks for watching. Take care, and yeah, good luck.